I was going to poorly phrase the question and say, had you ever seen anything like yesterday before? And then my own answer to my own question was, man, I hope not. Tell us about your day yesterday. Tell us what happened from where you were sitting.
It feels like a bad dream, really. We have this sense that we had yesterday as it was happening and as we have today, wake up with this profound sense of sadness, really. That was the emotion that was just pervasive on the Hill amongst all my colleagues. But, we were in the middle of this very important constitutional process. We were going through the electoral count. I was at the table helping make the arguments against the state of Arizona because we were deeply concerned about that and other states and the voting irregularity and the way they violated the Constitution in the process of the election and the presidential election in 2020. So we were in the midst of that. And while we were making the argument, in fact, I had just completed my speech, my 5-minute speech. It rotated to a Democrat, and it was just back to a Republican, Paul Gosar of Arizona, and he was beginning his speech, and we heard this ruckus, this chaos. And there was a bunch of rustling around on the floor, and the Capitol Police started hearing the doors barricaded. And a Capitol Police lieutenant, we interrupt the proceedings, comes up to the microphone and says, "Sorry, members, please, you need to stay in your seats. You need to pull out the gas masks under your seats." And as he was giving that instruction, the sounds became louder. And when you're in the Capitol facility, it's all the walls are marble and everything. Everything echoes when you're going down this hall. It sounded like 1,000 people were coming down the hall to the chamber, chanting and screaming and all that. Within a matter of minutes, we started hearing, the windows were breaking. There's a bit of alarm on the floor, as you can imagine. It's just a chaotic scene. And they tried to lock us down in place in the chamber. And then they realized that was going to be breached as well. And so as they were ushering all the members of Congress out a back door, down tunnels, into this safety area on the Capitol Hill complex, we heard gunshots and screaming and all kinds of, it was just crazy. People were banging on the doors. Just a surreal experience, and one no one will ever forget.
To clarify, you said you heard banging on the doors. Were the protesters that had breached the House chamber, whatever room you were in, wherever, were they at the door of where you were in the safe room, as it were?
No, they never made it to where they ushered all of us. There are these secret passageways, they're basement hallways and stuff that were built many, many years ago for situations like this, but really for convenience, so we can go in between the buildings without having to be out on the street. And that's where they ushered us into this safe area. We can never disclose where we went, all of that. But he had 150 members of Congress, crammed together in this large kind of safe room situation. And on the way in, I did a Fox News live interview, explaining what was happening. It was just a crazy thing and really sad. But when I say they were banging on the doors, these were people who were literally trying to get into the chamber, and as you see, they did. Guns were drawn by Capitol Police. It was a very tense situation, and we didn't know what was happening, because everybody has to remember, we had been in session. I hadn't watched a television screen at that point up there for like 12 hours before that. We didn't know what was going on. There were threats on Capitol Hill. The day before, there was a rumor that there might be a plane crashed into the Capitol by Iran. There were bomb threats. All of our offices were evacuated in the hours preceding this, and it was just a crazy day. So nerves were already frayed. People were deeply concerned. I never had any fear about it. I just had this overwhelming sense of just sadness. I don't know how. I'm just heartbroken. I don't know how else to explain it. It just feels like we crossed a Rubicon.
Do you put the blame for this, any of it, at the feet of the president?
There's a lot of blame to go around, and everybody knows I'm a supporter of the president's, but the way that was handled yesterday was just terrible. It was just terrible, and I'll tell him that myself when I get a chance to speak with him. I don't know exactly what was said at the rally because, again, we were busy on the House floor, but I'm told that this crowd was kind of whipped into a frenzy, and then he basically said, "Let's go down there and get them," kind of thing. When you're at a rally and you're riling people up, you sometimes use loose language. I don't know exactly what was said, but I do know that, the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, has a real serious responsibility. And all the blame is not at his feet for certain. Donald Trump, I know him, I know his heart. He had no intention for any of this to happen, for violence to ensue, for vandalism in the people's house to happen. Of course not. But I said on Fox News, and I've said multiple times since, that in the moments that followed all of that, we needed him to stand strong and make really unequivocal denunciation of what's going on. And he tweeted a few times, but Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff, suggested on his Twitter account that the president should make a statement from the Oval Office. I was kind of hoping he had done that, but academics will all review this in the days and months and years ahead, and there'll be a lot of armchair quarterbacking. But it was just a really sad situation.
So what happens today? You back into the chamber, more work to do. I saw a story a little while ago said that most of the protesters had gone home. The term they used was cleared out. What do you hear about what might happen today, if anything at all?
Well, they're cleared out because we brought in, I think there was 1,500 troops, once you count National Guard and law enforcement agencies from around the area, nearby states, districts, and that kind of thing. They all came in, cleared the Capitol complex. By the time we went back into session, and we were in session until I think 3:45 a.m., we had to finish, under federal statute and the Constitution, we had to finish the Electoral Count Act. We had to finish that process. And so the vice president was presiding over a joint session until 3:45 in the morning. But that's done, and we had lots of meetings, steering committee meetings, all sorts of things that were supposed to happen today and tomorrow. But I think probably wisely the leadership decided, let's just do that next week instead. So most people will be, I think, heading home this morning. And, I'm looking out the window of my office here. I don't think there's anybody left here to cause any trouble, primarily because we have such heavy law enforcement presence.
Mike, let me ask you this. It's over. Joe Biden's going to be president, going to have a Democratic-controlled House and Senate. We're hearing from many people, doom and gloom is on the way. Is doom and gloom on the way? Are y'all coming after my gun and my 401k and everything that is dear to me now? Should we really be worried about it, or are those just folks that are just liking to scare us about what's ahead?
I wish I could tell you that was hyperbole, but it's not. I'm one of the people that have been warning about this. We all have this nightmare scenario where the kind of the radical left fringe of the Democrat Party takes charge of the government. And when that second Senate seat runoff race was called in Georgia, that harkened in what I fear is going to be a very dark period in our history. And I'm not trying to be dramatic here, engage in hyperbole. I'm telling you that what Chuck Schumer warned us about before those runoffs in Georgia, and that little candid moment he had when he looked into the cell phone video and said, "Get ready, we're going to change the country," and they mean it. They mean it, Aaron. So now you got the radicals in charge of the House with a majority. You've got the radicals in charge of the Senate majority, and you've got Joe Biden in the White House. He's the most moderate amongst all of them, but he'll sign whatever they send him. So I'm telling you, yesterday when that Senate race was called, Chuck Schumer tweeted one line. He said, "Buckle up," and he means it. And so what that means is they're going to try to change some of these foundational principles that have made our republic the greatest in the history of the world, and they're going to do it in short order because they think they just have 2 years. We have a good chance of winning back the House majority in the midterm election in 2022, and so he means it. We better watch closely. There's some really serious, crazy stuff coming down the pipeline.